Excellent. So my first question, I'd like you guys to introduce yourselves, but tell me, first of all, who you are, what you're about, and what you think of this whole idea of social commerce. Do you believe that it's really the democratization of commerce? Is it all that?
Great. So,
Francesca.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Franziska Petersen. Yesterday was my last day at Meta. So I'm here, I'm transitioning, I'm here between. So I'm speaking for myself today, and I'm going to share some experience I had. Not speaking for the company, though, just to make that very clear. Do you want us to introduce ourselves then go? Or
yeah, why don't you do that real quick? We'll introduce yourself, and I'll come back to you on that question.
Perfect.
So, Matthias.
Yeah. Thanks, Laura, for having me on this panel. My name is Matthias. I'm within Amazon for 15 years. I've done different things there, and since 3 years, I'm in payments. I'm a country manager for the German business.
Hello, my name is Eugene. I'm CEO and founder of Tap2Pay. We activate payments and social network messengers for SMBs, and I'm glad to be here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Laura. My name is Filip. Good morning, everyone. I'm based out of Berlin, been at Stripe for 6 years, and I focus on all things go-to-market.
Great.
Excellent.
So I'm going to start. So quickly, so at Meta, I worked on blockchain as my last role. And then before that, I was in payments partnerships and was partly responsible for launching our social comics experience on Instagram and Marketplace in the UK. So I have thoughts on this topic. So in terms of the democratization, I do think if you see it purely as the world democracy, right, as the people and rules. So if you just think about it like that, I don't think we're seeing pure democratization because we're not giving more votes to people, obviously. There's still a platform that owns the experience, and there will still be partners who own a lot of the part of the experience. However, I do believe that with more choice, there is obviously walls being broken down. There is more choice for consumers. There's obviously more abilities for merchants to sell to different types of consumers, having to go through less and less barriers. So, of course, in that regard, I do believe in it. If you think of the supply chain, I think that takes a bit of a critical approach because there are people who are making these products. So if you really truly think about whether they're going to have my vote on this, probably yes, because they also have more choice. But that depends on each and individual experience. But altogether, I do believe there is more diversity. We've seen it on Instagram a lot, right? There's different type of people selling different type of products to a completely new audience who also suddenly feel valued. So especially if you look in makeup and fashion, there is just a lot more happening in the last couple of years. So yeah, of course, I do believe there is a movement.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks.
Matthias.
Yeah, so on a democratization, I think there is a yes, but there's also a but. So let me start with the yes. So let's assume, Laura, you are that user that is selling the yoga mats you were just talking about. I think what you would do traditionally is probably you would start, with a marketplace, because on the marketplace there's traffic. And if you think of Amazon, for example, it would solve other challenges for you, like how would you fulfill, your yoga mats to the customer, the checkout, the payment, the after sales. So this is where you normally would start to sell. But what you would not solve is how would you generate traffic on that product? How would you drive discoverability unless you have the pockets to spend on marketing? So and I think this is the beauty of social commerce because, as an influencer or, content creator, as a streamer, you are able to build, a relationship with your consumers. You are able to use this traffic, on maybe the marketplace channel to do the selling, and this helps you basically reduce the barriers to take part, in the market. The but, in my opinion, is it adds also another layer of dependency, right? Because you don't have assets, you already source basically out most of the value chain, and now you're also dependent on that social media channel. So let's assume, for example, you are a TikTok user and have a heavy follower base, and for some reason your TikTok account gets closed, or TikTok announces a new commercial model that is not sustainable with your financials. You are lost at some point. So that's why I think it's important also to reduce that dependency to also as a streamer, build on different channels, maybe have your own website at some point, look at different marketplaces, look at different social media channels to build up your followers. And yeah, then you're probably good.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys are aware, do you know that Amazon has launched live streaming? So they've actually created a platform for creators to curate their own goods from Amazon and get commissions from that. So you guys are taking a step in the social direction.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Look forward to seeing more about that. I know that's not your area, but it was an interesting development I was reading about. And Eugene, what do you think?
I think this is a great opportunity for small businesses, micro businesses to start, sell, encourage more people, gather new information, get reviews from these channels. It's really pushing sales from the beginning. But of course, if business goes to the next level, they need to build maybe more serious channels. But nevertheless, a lot of traffic, a lot of transactions done in social media. We see that social networks really focusing on this because not only likes and followers matters for big part of our society, and people would like to promote products, bring new customers, new resellers, and this is super great. The only one thing that I see that social networks could break this stuff if they turn in some point in Apple App Store when they offer just one single application payment methods and set their own commission fee and would like to take bigger part from the revenue of the merchants.
Excellent. Great.
Last but not least, democratization of commerce, I'd say partially, and I'm very much aligned with what the others said and sort of what you, Laura, mentioned in the very beginning. Great additional way, I suppose, for that personalization, that sort of discovery aspect and that greater customer experience. Additionally, I think definitely a good way for individuals, whether that be an influencer or content creator, to sort of monetize, I guess, their craft. On the flip side, I think if I take my payments point of view and consider merchants, to a certain extent, social commerce is just an additional or different channel for them, next to online versus offline versus all the others that are out there. And so I believe it would be sort of relevant for a subset of consumers and a subset for merchants, but not necessarily on a bigger and totally global scale.
Excellent. Yeah, I think you're right about the channels. You know, you look at something like Nike, and they sell on every channel. So they're selling through their own stores, they're selling through Amazon Marketplace, they're selling through Instagram, they're selling through, everything. So.
And there's more. Like you mentioned, that convergence in your sort of intro presentation, right? That's been going on. Like the old world was like offline, brick and mortar, and then online e-commerce, but like it's mobile, it's voice, it's chat, it's video, it's live streaming, it's social commerce. So like there's so much more, and I think certain merchants will pick what they deem relevant and important for them, for their particular products and services, and their particular consumer demographics.
Exactly. Great. And one of the questions I was going to ask as well is about the biggest challenge. So what do you guys see as the biggest challenges when it comes to social commerce?
I mean, I can take that. It's not seamless right now, right? I think I can speak for Instagram. The biggest challenge is that you see a product and then you click on it, you get redirected, and you don't have everything in one place. As you mentioned before, right? You buy something, if you want to return it, you actually, as a user, you're probably confused, right? You don't know, do I return this to Instagram or the merchant who owns this. So I think there is a lot of opportunity in that space. There are a couple of companies who are trying to crack it. In the US, there is one company I'm particularly fond of. It's called Whatnot. It's like the new kid on the block. They are doing video commerce, very exciting. I think they've launched in the UK, but they're not here in Germany yet. But they show what can be done. But in terms of opportunities and challenges, plenty.
Exactly. And let me ask you, Matthias, what does Amazon do to help fill some of the gaps in social commerce or in marketplaces?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, probably the biggest challenge is I see so many, great live streamers, for example, on Twitch, which also belongs to Amazon, or content creators. But again, just because you're having, a great follower base and a cool product, it doesn't mean that you deliver a great purchase experience or shopper experience, because as said before, there's way more to it. You need to have a great logistics because you need to deliver the stuff in time. You need to have a convenient checkout. You need to have secure payments. There's so many more to it. And I think this is where Amazon today, the marketplace, or also Amazon Pay supports users. And, if go back to the ecosystem that you explained, if users really want to develop to, maybe resellers, small brands, and get larger, it really is important for them to make sure that the whole customer experience is working, not just only the traffic generation.
Yeah, I mean, I think trust is the key. So when I think of social media, I don't mean to be pointing at you, Franziska, but when I think social media, I think fun, serendipitous, experiences, social. When I think of Amazon, I do think of trust. So people just trust that it's going to get there, it's going to work, and that their payment method's going to be secure, et cetera. So,
and that they get their money back if it doesn't work, right?
Yeah,
So.
That's right. We know that Amazon takes responsibility. So we need to get to the place where the social media companies actually do take responsibility, or at least the customer knows who's responsible if they need to return something.
Yep.
Or it doesn't show up. And I'm going to switch the question a little bit for you, Eugene. When we think about social commerce and the challenges, is it different based upon geography? In terms of mature markets versus emerging markets, I think you have some experience with the likes of WhatsApp and in different emerging markets and other chat. Give us a little bit of your perspective on developing economies.
Yeah. Merchants faced a lot of challenges. Depends on the location, depends on the platforms that they're gonna sell products. And actually, why we did our service, we would like to remove all of these challenges for the merchants. So you mentioned about like long checkout process during buy the jacket. So we see this is everywhere in a social network, Instagram, whatever, messengers. They try to redirect customers to the merchant websites, and it's really not works well in then. It's not social experience. Social experience when customer can in one interface finish the transaction, and then he can get even additional support, additional personal touch in these social networks, in all messengers. And all of these different. We divide it in a social network experience like Instagram and messengers. In messengers, it's really could be deliver such a personal touch connection. Before the payment, you can ask additional questions. You can ask if it's will be delivered, so how quick. Then you can get additional support, maybe return. And if some issues with the trust, I believe any customer will write down a review or post about it, how good or bad the experience was. So I don't believe this is a trust problem in this environment.
So self-policing, policing by the community is what you're saying.
Yes, and then next, payments as well. Many platforms, even in Europe, doesn't have a payment methods. So merchants has to be, some merchants have to be somehow bring it inside a social network or messengers. And we help to do this. And sometimes it's just a list of payment methods and not included a local one. And of course, and I saw the question about like how to manage all of the sales in these different channels. This as well big challenge, but if you're done through the one payment platform, you can manage all sales, you can support, you can do refunds, whatever you want.
Yeah. Excellent. Good stuff. All right, now thinking about Stripe, how do you support social commerce in terms of the ecosystem, like the marketplaces, marketplace payments, and creator payments. A lot of people are talking about creator monetization. How do you enable that?
So in a variety of ways, I'd say. Maybe before coming to that sort of part, just to add to what the others mentioned in terms of opportunities, again, I'm going to take the payments point of view and the merchant point of view, and why I believe social commerce is a good part of this, and then I'll come to the marketplace topic is, well, look at a merchant, what do they want? I'd argue in an ideal way, a super slick customer journey, ideally a very personalized experience, and ideally a somewhat brand-enhancing experience for them. And that way, I believe sort of social commerce is just a piece to the puzzle to really deliver that. But to what I mentioned earlier, it's probably going to be channel agnostic, whether social commerce via video or chat or voice or whatever, somewhat indifferent for the merchant to make the purchase. Then when it comes sort of like to your question about challenges and what we see particularly in social commerce and the way Stripes labels it, the creator economy, is like there are certain platforms out there, Franziska mentioned one of them, different marketplaces across the world that sort of like offer solutions and services to influencers and creators. And from a payments point of view, the challenge is, well, how do I enable that creator or influencer to ship, if you will, their content and their ideas, whether it's selling tickets or subscribing to a newsletter. From a payments journey point of view, the challenge comes of like, well, it's a marketplace. You need to sort of like somehow onboard that creator, KYC and verify them, sort of like manage fund flows, customer buys something. I would like to have a commission as the platform provider, and then the remainder of the funds go to my content creator because they rendered a service to the end customer. How is she or he going to be paid out? In what frequency? And all of these are like pretty challenging topics for somebody to sort of like do themselves. And Stripe in particular sort of like focuses quite strongly on that marketplace solution and has a dedicated product for that.
Excellent. Good stuff. All right. Now, I don't know how old you guys are, and I don't know if you have kids, but what do you think about how is our demographics influencing buyer behavior with Gen Z, the millennials versus the boomers? What are you seeing? What is your opinion?
I can take that one. I just want to add one thing to what you said, and this goes back to democracy, right? I think what is so exciting about what's happening in this whole ecosystem is that a lot of small partners are emerging, and they're helping exactly all the issues that you mentioned. And I think this is where we're seeing a lot of democracy coming in as well, because we're not relying, or the creator or the marketplace is even not relying anymore. There's a lot of small marketplaces on the big guys, but they can work and plug and play. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of challenges being solved by companies that we might never even have heard of. Mm-hmm. So just to round that up, because I think there's a lot of exciting things happening. As for Gen Z, I think the one main word I'd say, they just want to be entertained. Mm-hmm. I think, and I can also speak for myself, even though I'm not Gen Z, I think there is a lot of enhancement that's being done in that space of how you keep the customer engaged. So there is the idea of gamification of shopping. And I think the US is moving quite fast in that space. And there's your overall idea that, you're aligning with a brand, you feel that, at that very stage, this brand is selling what you believe in or what you get excited about. I do believe Gen Z is not as loyal at all, maybe, to brands that they get excited about. So I think there will be more churn in terms of influencers, creators, brands coming, going. So I would say that is sort of the trend that I'm seeing at the moment when you talk about Gen Z and social commerce.
All right, short attention spans and unloyal.
Yeah.
Very good. And what about you, Matthias?
Yeah, totally agree on this. We know that Gen Z is the first digital natives, but they're also very social aware. So, my kids are 7 and 9, so they're not spending yet, but I'm pretty sure, their expectation on, purchase experience will be way different than mine. And so is the Gen Z experience or expectations way different than mine. And I think basically it's an accelerator for social commerce. That's 100% true. And I think the one that meets that expectation best will then also be, or that will be the winners, right? Because this is the generation that now starts spending big time, and this will become more important. And as said, it's going to be an accelerator for social commerce.
Absolutely, yeah. And the winner, yeah, who's going to be the winner of the Gen Z heart and mind, Eugene?
Big question.
Actually, I don't divide like generations in this topic, in this market, like social commerce. I believe that if this market bring useful, quick solution to acquire product, and then you can use it whatever age you can use it. Yeah,
Think you can
no problem.
teach my grandmother or my mom to buy something
Why
on
not? Why
yeah?
not? Like, you know, after the COVID times, everything
is possible.
possible. Yeah, definitely. If next year your grandmother can learn how to do this, I bet for sure. And if we bring such of seamless payment methods in the social network like Apple Pay, Google Pay, and other one-touch payment, why not? You see beautiful.
You haven't met my. She even makes me turn off the Echo devices when she's in the room because she's afraid that Jeff Bezos is listening. And I said, Mom, Jeff Bezos doesn't care what you're doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's definitely, so it's nice though that you don't see any boundaries with age. It's all a state of mind, right?
You said about the China experience. So everything you can buy there. And from airplane tickets until delivery of food. So it's more about like convenience of this channel. Like sometimes people use just a few applications on mobile device and don't install a new one for full year because it's enough for them. And usually social media messengers already on the devices, and they already can look through the offers and find out how to finish the payment.
Very good. And what do you agree, Filip? Or do you think their generations are different?
I do, and I'm very aligned sort of like with what the others mentioned there. Gen Z is like starting to sort of like with that purchasing power, that whole discovery topic. I think another aspect of it is like the virality of a personal experience a single individual can have when they, you know, that's what they do, tell their friends all about it. And sort of again, it can become a multiplier effect, I believe. I'm probably very aligned with your grandma and or your parents. Like my parents probably would not do this, but it's gonna happen more and more. Again, to my earlier point, it really depends on sort of consumer demographics and what a particular brand that sells a certain product or service is targeting.
Yeah, and it's interesting, your point on China, just to give you guys a quick stat, you know, in China, 30% of people are creators, and then 50% are curators, and then the last 20% are just bystanders. Compare that to the West, where only 1% of the population are creators. The next 10% are actually curators, and then the vast majority, 90%, are just watching. So we have it's very different in China. I think it's partly, there was another question that someone asked earlier about financial inclusion, and I think that's one of the things about China is that it created this whole environment. The reason so many people participate is that they needed to be included in commerce in some way. They needed payment methods, so Alibaba and Alipay came up with a solution for them. That's why they're all participating. So yeah, it's not all about age, it's also about geography and opportunity and need. So who, again, are the big winners? I think you were wanting to answer that question.
I mean, I don't think we have a big winner, because if I look in the room, I'm not even sure we actually have social commerce in Europe right now.
Yeah.
So so it'll be seen who will be the big winner. I think there are obviously the big players who also haven't yet launched the experience, and there are some nimble, cool players coming along, very often coming from some niche categories that, you know, we might not even be aware of, who could come in full force. So I think one of the companies I'm very interested in is a company called Whatnot. They launched, I think, in 2019. They're already valued at $3 billion. They raised $500 million million, and they're growing like mad. And they haven't even launched in Europe at all. And they're US and I think the UK. And they're doing truly social, aka video commerce, where people are just selling from their home directly on video, and it's getting fulfilled, and the whole process is very smooth. And I think we will see more. That's probably the closest I see to what is happening in Asia, especially China. So I think there'll be more. There'll be more happening, and it's an interesting space.
Yeah, interesting. So let me shift a little bit to super apps. And a lot of people debate about where will the super app begin. Will it start with a chat, a messaging app? Will it start with a marketplace? Will it start with a wallet, a bank, some sort of mobile device? So where do you think it will start? Who will be the winner in terms of super apps? Who do you think has the best chance? Matthias.
Cool. I mean, when it comes to super apps, I think it's very tricky, and we're probably not talking about all the regulation challenges and the data challenges. That's probably a big topic on its own. I think if we look at the West, we have a lot of established players, right? For messaging, we have WhatsApp. For payments, we have Amazon Pay, PayPal, and others. For commerce, we have also the Amazon Marketplace, and I think it's going to really hard actually to change buyer behaviors in this area, unless you really provide a superior, new, disruptive customer experience that solves the problem for the customer. And I think this was the case in the East with super apps. I don't see it honestly right now in the Western area, but I might be wrong. Again, if you solve a customer problem, there's always a chance also for a super app. But as said, right now I don't see it.
What do you think, Eugene?
I believe messengers should be first one in a kind of definition of a super app. And they already did a lot of things to activate, let's say, small micro application inside the messenger, like chatbots, like additional channels. I can define it like super app, and some of the messenger already working on enabling payments natively. And any payment provider can enable own payments there. So some mechanics could be even integrated, like games, like e-commerce shops could be somehow describe their products.
I think I need to define super app real quick. So a super app is basically, it's a wallet, it's a payment method, it's some sort of social network, some sort of network. It could be people connecting to people, it could be people connecting to merchants. And then on top of that, you've got the wallet, the payment method, the networking capability. And then on top of that, you have mini apps. So commerce could be, it could be ticketing, dating, buying, shopping, live streaming, so all of these different things. And so it could be a niche super app. It could be, you can just pick and play what you want to be on top of the wallet, the payment method, and the network. So by a show of hands, how many of you believe that we will ever have a super app by that definition in Europe?
I believe there's one.
You believe there is one?
There's one.
Which one is
it's
it?
Apple.
See, I would disagree, and I left out part of the definition, and that is that all of this is connected through AI and data. So in the super app, you've got the mini apps. So you've got the wallet, the payment method, the network, the commerce, maybe call them mini apps or mini programs, and those are connected through data, and that way you're able to feed up the right recommendations to the customer based upon their behavior in all of those different areas. So that's the only difference with Apple, because everyone says that Apple's a super app. I'm just not sure they're there yet.
Laura and I used to work together, so I don't want to start a mega debate here.
Come on. I think they like debate,
we
right?
had a lot of those back in the days.
So.
I guess if you use your definition, maybe not, but but then I just have to agree with Matthias that we will probably never see one in Europe, just because purely of regulatory point of view, and then also the way that the market came about, right? The way that we all onboarded to the internet and to experience. Unless there will be a completely new experience, some people talk about the blockchain. Maybe there is something coming. Who knows? But I don't want to get into that topic too much. But then still, I think the only thing that's close to a super app, because the technology is owned, infrastructure is owned, payment is owned to a certain degree, and data is known, is, in my view, the Apple experience.
Cool. And now, again, I want to ask the audience by show of hands, who believes that there's going to be a super app in Europe?
Interesting. Another one.
Oh, it's about, what do you think? It's 50%?
I
30%?
believe I see the problem here. Why you think that it's gonna be a problem with the super app? Because merchants in this platform, messengers and a platform like social networks would like to take under their own hood everything, and that is the problem, the biggest one. Yeah, like they would like to handle payments, they would like to handle data, they would like to handle everything. And if we're talking about democratization, they need to somehow say, okay, we did a platform. Now, let's say, developers, independent ones, could bring applications and could just use our platform.
Yeah.
Also,
What do you think,
just to
Philip?
add, maybe like, I was very surprised actually by the show of hands from the audience, and when it comes to super apps, like one argument for it is like your phone screen or your home screen is like highly sought after real estate. So like having one app there that you interact daily could be an argument if it provides, as Matthias mentions, sort of like additional customer value. But I personally think I'm more like on Franziska's and Matthias' side, it's probably not going to happen in Europe because, at least for me personally as a consumer, sort of best of breed is still very strong, and like you have your specific app that does a certain thing and a different app for a different thing. Maybe there will be convergence, but I don't think for the mentioned reasons it's going to happen the same way it did in Asia.
Cool. What about a niche super app? So imagine like a dating super app, because right now I have to look on 5 different sites for all the, find the right guy. What if you had like a niche super app for dating or for mobility or for shopping or for travel, for example?
I mean, it'd be great to have it for dating, right?
Yeah, wouldn't it be awesome? Yeah.
For the man, pick a date, book a restaurant, buy a ticket. Yeah, I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something out there. Maybe somebody wants to invent it. Maybe Laura, we should go ahead. Yeah, I guess there could be. I do think regulation these days in Europe plays a big role, right? And I think the protection of the customer and the idea that you shouldn't be throwing data around and use it in all different types of ways. So I think we might not see it from the big guys just because of how heavily they're scrutinized these days. But if there's something new coming, open-minded.
Yeah.
Absolutely, but I think, again, the main challenge is, does it solve a customer problem? I think this is the essential and the key question, and if the answer is no, it will not fly. If the answer is yes, there is high potential, obviously.
Yeah. And the other thing at Trust, we talked a lot about identity, and I think that another thing that's different between China and us is that we use our email address. And you can have hundreds of email addresses in social media, right? Whereas in China, it's your identity is tied to your mobile number, and you have one identity. So how do we address this challenge in the West to try to solve for identity and help to create trust when you're dealing in marketplaces and people buying and selling to each other through whatever channel? Do you have any opinion on that, Philip?
This is a tough one. On the identity piece, I'll be honest, I'm probably not the best person to comment. I think when it comes to the payments piece, how do you sort of like trust and facilitate a transaction, taking that sort of creator and marketplace and platform provider point of view, I suppose larger platforms that facilitate sort of like transactions from buyer to seller gain trust just by brand power, size, and I think for us as a payment provider in the background, in terms of like KYC and money laundering checks and whatnot and verifications during onboarding. Like we make sure that the third party rendering a service that was purchased is legitimate and is okay to be trusted to receive funds after a certain delivery of goods and services.
Yeah. Anyone else have any comments on identity?
I mean, I think if you look at China, do we want that model here? I'm not sure. So I think in that regard, I think there is enough checks and balances in the system, and there's been a lot of learning. I mean, we just heard examples where it can be solved in different ways, because I think above commerce should always be the protection of the individual data. So, if there is something that could solve it without creating one identity, yes. But I do believe you're quite comfortable in the West and the way it is for now.
Interesting debate on privacy versus complete anonymity versus safety. So when we move into the metaverse, that's going to be a big debate topic, because your children are playing in the metaverse and they're online and they've got their little avatar and they're talking to another avatar, and there's an AI bot that knows can watch their pupils dilate at certain. It knows them, and it can then it introduces an individual they can talk to. So one of the big debates we have right now at Accenture is how do you balance the need for privacy, because of course we want everyone to have privacy, but we also want safety. And the only way to have safety is to have some knowability. So that's a next discussion. Anyone have kids playing on their Oculus headsets? You're the only one with kids, right?
Probably not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. They're just playing
They're
on their
7.
Switch, protected environments. But yeah, obviously that's going to be a tricky one then, yeah.
It's a big debate. I know it's something to watch, but I do think identity is going to be one of the critical discussions we're going to be having going into the next decade.
Yeah.
Good. And so we have just like 8 minutes left, so I'd like to give each of you a couple of minutes, just talk about your predictions for the future based upon our discussion today. Who would like to start?
I can start.
All right, Philip.
Predictions for the future, super app, as I mentioned earlier, no. Social commerce, yes. It's happening to a smaller extent. It will happen more, but at least that's what I believe, more nuanced when it fits a certain brand, retailer, and their respective targeted consumer demographics.
I can continue. Yeah, definitely social commerce will grow, and it's we already see great numbers for the previous years and great estimation of what's gonna be growth rate next. I see even from my personal experience that even my wife, when she would like to start business and start to sell some small product, I did a small website, bought a domain for her, set up everything, and said, now you can ready to pay, to sell the products. And she said to me, no, I'm gonna be selling through my Instagram account. And you know what? After a couple years, all collaborations, all sales, most of them done in a social network. And for me, it's absolutely obvious that small micro businesses will get great channels to promote, to sell product directly to the customers. And it's not just like small numbers. We have experience when merchants did like hundreds of thousands sales, just a few people behind this account and this business. And I just would like to see that much bigger brands will focus on this and bring more money, not like in advertising, but as well in a real commercialization their accounts and not just pushing their brand. And to send people in offline shops and other stuff.
One of the things that we noticed about social commerce, they were really started by micro businesses, and they were started in developing economies. So if you look at Brazil and Africa and India and Asia, that's where social commerce got started. And it started because there's a mom or a pop shop using, basically saying, I'm going to sell you something. I'll send you a link via WhatsApp so you can pay. And then, they facilitate transactions socially. And that is what I think, that was basically, they started it, and the rest of us are just trying to learn from it and amplify it. Yeah.
Great. On super apps, obviously no, that's what I already answered. On social commerce will definitely be, the driver of future e-commerce. I think one important aspect, what you mentioned at the end also, is, when I today think about social commerce, I think of, rather users and small brands, but not about the big brands. And I think it's a amazing potential also for these guys. I've seen it because basically I built up a lot of categories in e-commerce at Amazon. I started 15 years ago. They were offline players, super strong, don't play a role today anymore because they were late movers, and now it's too late for them to move. So there is really always, with a new channel, growing a shift in the balance of power. And I think as a brand, as a big brand, you have a huge potential actually to address this opportunity and again, make that change of power. So there will not only be new players on the market. It will also be really a different game for the existing brands. And I'm super curious to see how that works out.
I saw somebody saying, please no more buzzwords. Is this just marketing? So I'm going to be careful. So I do think video, very excited about video, shoppable video, anything video. So more interaction with video in different ways. I think the product is developing very quick in that space. I do think AI, right? I don't want to use a buzzword, but Stripe just integrated to make their onboarding experience better for merchants. And I think there's a vast amount of opportunity in that space to make everyone's life better. And I think the last one is the tension between centralization and decentralization. And I think we're touching on it anyway as we're talking about social commerce, right? So who owns the experience, who owns the customer? And there may be more technological developments happening in space. And I'm going to throw the word blockchain in there, not because I want to create a new buzzword, but because I think this is where we may see more people having more votes and more ability to shape what they call smart contracts or other experiences. So that may be the next step. I do not know whether it will be, but I do think we're seeing there being some sort of healthy tension between, who owns. So those are my three predictions, and whatever will be built on that experience, we will see.
Yeah, excellent. Well, I think this has been a great discussion. I love being here at Merchant Payment Ecosystem for this reason. It's really coupling commerce, merchants, payment companies, and this idea of ecosystem. And so when I think about the future, I think it's quite bright because it's not going to be about winners or losers. It's not going to be about one person takes all. It's going to be about the ecosystem. It's going to be about partnerships. Everyone coming together in this rich, dynamic place that is people, shoppers, influencers, creators, merchants, brands, platforms, and all of the service providers that make it happen. And so everyone in this room is responsible for really bringing everything to life and making this a nice, fun, omni-channel world. So thank you guys for coming. And thank you guys for being here. Great panelists.